Good morning. I continue to talk on this text, opening the hand of thought. This morning I talk part of one paragraph. If you have this text, page 111, second paragraph. I read only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. In Buddhism, as religion, Zazen, in which we let go of all these human thoughts and feelings, is the foundation of our lives. It is Zazen that protects, guides, and gives strength to our daily actions as well as to our lives as a whole, and in turn to the society in which we live. The next half of this paragraph, Uchiyama Roshi again quotes many sentences, sayings from Bible. So I have to study more. So I only talk these 2 sentences. Actually, this is one long sentence. And one kind of a problem or difficulty of translation is this word, the foundation. Anyway, this is the first section of part 7, Living Wide Awake. Before part 6, he talks about the meaning or significance of Zazen practice in terms of the modern civilization. And in this part 7, he talks about how our Zazen works in our daily lives. And the title of this first section is Zazen as religion. So in this text here, he said, Zazen is religion, or a practice of religion. And in the end of this first paragraph in page 109, he says, for Zazen to function as religion, it is of primary concern to give up this ego-centered way of thinking that clings to body and mind. So we cling to our body and mind, even though this is a collection of 5 skandhas. Somehow 5 skandhas works as one machine. It produces, I always write, I, self-identity. And these 5 skandhas think this I is a owner and operator of these 5 skandhas. So 5 skandhas think we are belongs to this I. And this I and other I's, other people's I, are often feel separation. I am I, they are they. So that separation is caused in this structure. But as more fundamental reality of living beings, we are, as I always say, we are all connected. There's no such separation between this I and that I. But we think Shohaku and other people are separate, different, independent. And we think what is good for me. That is a primary concern. But in Buddhism, awakening means to awake this reality before separation between self and others, or subject and object. That is what awakening means. That is awakening to the interconnectedness. So what we do in our Zazen is to let go of this thoughts coming from this structure, me as a production of five skandhas. And that is, and next few paragraphs, Uchiyama Roshi discuss about what is relation. And in this paragraph, he returned to Buddhist Zazen as a Buddhist practice, that is religion. So this is a kind of a definition of what is the religious life based on this Zazen practice. And let me read these two sentences again. In Buddhism as religion. So Zazen is one of the Buddhist practice as religion, in which we let go of all these human thoughts and feelings. That means the way we think ourselves as independent beings, separate from other beings. So this letting go of individual thinking and feelings or emotion or ego-centered idea is the foundation of our lives. So we live based on this reality as foundation. But I think this word foundation is not a problem, but not literal translation. The original Japanese word Uchiyama Roshi used is go hon zon. This is not a foundation at all. Go is the same as o or on. That makes this word polite. Like when we in Japanese we put this o or go to so many words. Like this is water. Water in Japanese is mizu, but we often call this omizu. So we kind of express our appreciation, politeness to this thing called omizu, even omizu. Or we put almost this kind of word or go, almost everything. Hanashi is talk, but we often say ohanashi. That means you are venerable talk. That shows the respect to the person who speaks. So this goal is a polite word to make this thing, call this thing politely. And Honzon is a Buddhist term for the principal Buddha. Principal Buddha. Each tradition has its own principal or primary Buddha. For example, in our Soto school, Shakyamuni is a primary Buddha. So Shakyamuni is a Honzon of this tradition. And in Pure Land Buddhism, Amitabha Buddha is Gohonzon, the primary Buddha. And in Vajrayana Buddhism, Mahavairochana Buddha is the main or primary Buddha. Those Buddhas are called Honzon. So each tradition has its own primary Buddha. not only the tradition, but for example, even within Soto school, there are, in Japan we have about 15,000 temples. And even though the main or primary Buddha in Soto Zen tradition is Shakyamuni, but some temples has different Buddhas enshrined in the temple, because Japanese Buddhism had very long history, and sometime in that history, that temple changed the what we call denomination. So originally the temple might be a Pure Land temple, but sometimes it's changed into Soto Zen temple. So the denomination is changed, but at that time they don't take the Buddha statue out, so they keep Amitabha Buddha within the Zen temples. There are many of such examples. So each temple has its own primary Buddha that is enshrined in the main hall. That is it. Do you have something to say?
I just wanted to ask a question.
Okay.
I was wondering what the root meaning of Zon. I mean, that's not.
The literal meaning of son or zon means some venerable one. Or some also means respect, venerable or venerate, to venerate. And hon is a root or original or true. That is so truly venerable one is the original meaning. And even in one temple, there are different buildings. And in each building, there might be different Buddha or Bodhisattvas can be enshrined. So usually in Zen temple, main Buddha is enshrined in Buddha hall. But for example, in the Zendo or monks hall, we enshrine Manjushri. So we can say the Honzon of the Buddha hall, or Zendo is Manjushri. So there are more than one Honzon in big temples. So in this temple, the Shakyamuni is Honzon, but when we see this is a Buddha hall, but when we face this way, Manjushri is Honzon, so we have two Honzons. But that is what Uchiyama Roshi, that is the word Uchiyama Roshi used. And this, if we want to use this Honzon as a translation, primary or truly venerable one doesn't make sense. And if we translate as a principal, something like principal Buddha image, that is Buddha statue, then it doesn't make sense. So we give up to translate literal translation, and we think, this is a foundation of our life, on which we live, we think, and we venerate. So what Uchiyama Roshi is saying is, in our tradition, Zazen is primary Buddha, not the statue. And he says exactly the same thing in this text, page 149. This section is a translation of Uchiyama Roshi's final teisho or lecture, right before he retired from Antaiji. And in that lecture, it took more than 2 hours. He talked about 7 points he kept in his mind while he was the abbot of Antaiji. So this is almost like his will to his disciples. He wanted his disciples to continue this same point. And the first point is study and practice the Buddha Dharma only for the sake of the Buddha Dharma, not for the sake of emotions or daily ideas. That means based on our personal desire. And the second is Zazen is our truest and most venerable teacher. Zazen is our true and most venerable teacher. And again, this is not a literal translation. The most literal translation of this saying is Zazen is Honzon and true teacher. Again, we avoid to make literal translation of this Honzon. And he talks about a person who came to Antaiji and asked Uchiyama Roshi to pay homage to the enshrined Buddha at Antaiji. And I think the principal Buddha at Antaiji was Amitabha. It came from some temple, much older temple in Nara. So they brought the second-hand Buddha. Anyway, the person want to make homage for the primary enshrined Buddha at Antaiji. And that so Uchiyama Roshi took the person to the Buddha hall, at Antaiji Buddha hall, and then there is the same hall like ours. And the person found an electric fan above the Shakyamuni, above that Buddha. And the person was surprised and complained, to put an electric fan above the principal Buddha is not respectable. So the person complained. Then Uchiyama Roshi said, at this temple, the true Honzon is opposite side of the hall. That is Zazen. I mean, the electric fan is, in Kyoto, it's really hot during summer. So we need something. And that electric fan was not so powerful, so it doesn't help so much. But somehow, if fan is working, the air moves, so it was a little help for the people to see. So Uchiyama Roshi said to that person at Antaiji, Honzon is not that wooden statue, but Honzon is this Zazen. That is the same thing. So he says, in our tradition, or in our practice, or in our religion, Honzon, the most venerable one, or the Buddha, we take refuge, is our Zazen. That is why he said, Zazen is the Gohonzon, and also Zazen is, he said, only true teacher. He said, no human beings can be true teacher. To me or to us, Uchiyama Roshi was true teacher. But he said, I never said I am true teacher. True teacher means we are a teacher who is always correct. never make mistakes. But Uchiyama Roshi said there's no such human beings. And if you think I am the true teacher, that you are only your personal opinion or evaluation to me. So that is happening in here in this level. So that is not really true. True venerable one or true Buddha is this interconnectedness in which there's no such things called me or you or they. And our Zazen practice that in which we let go of all thought coming and going within our mind. That is the production of 5 skandhas. And that came from our karmic experiences in the past. Our way of thinking, our value systems are produced by our past experiences through our education or our good and bad experiences. We think certain things is very important and other things are less important, and some other things are bad or evil or has no value at all. That is how we are taught, and we create, or our 5 skandhas create that kind of system or value system or picture of the world. And what we let go in our Zazen is that thing, that image, and also the evaluation. Then it's still happening here. But we don't put primary emphasis on here, things happening in here, but things, the foundation we are sitting on. That's why Dogen Zen said, our Zazen is Buddha's practice. Practice based on this foundation, not what we think. If we think, I mean, here Uchiyama Roshi is saying Zazen is the most venerable one, or primary Buddha. That is thinking. So it's also happening in this level. So when we, only in our practice of Zazen, we are really doing so. That is real thing. But whatever we think and discuss is like a incomplete copy of reality. That is like a map and real ground. In whatever method we make the map or atlas on the earth, of the earth, earth has 3 dimensions and map has only 2 dimensions. In whatever method we use, something is distorted in any kind of map or atlas. And our picture of the world is like a map of atlas. Depending upon where we are, the entire world looks very different.
I have a question.
Please.
So does that mean then that what someone says about Zazen is not as important as actually doing Zazen?
Right.
Thank you.
Teaching or discussion about Zazen and actual sitting is 2 different things. Like reading a map and actually walking on the ground. This doesn't mean reading map is valueless.
Right.
We can read map or travel around without getting out of the room. It's not so meaningful. we only get some information about other places. But if we actually travel without map or any information about where we are traveling, it might be dangerous. And if we have some information about where we are traveling, our trip might be more interesting and meaningful. So I think we need both. But we need to, it's important to understand map and actual ground or earth are different. So what he's talking is this actual practice of Zazen, or sitting and letting go of our thinking. Some thinking might be really ego-centered, or some thinking might be really disordered. That has nothing to do with the reality. But some thinking might be, even though incomplete, that has some reflection of reality. So in this level, there is a, good and bad, or right or wrong thinking. But on that ground, there's no such good and bad thing. That the good and bad is produced in our mind. So we think this reality is primary Buddha. And what we think about the reality is the production of our mind. It might be have some connection with the reality, or some disordered thinking thought is nothing to do with reality, but anyway that came from reality of the way five skandhas are. So we don't eliminate or kill such disordered idea. We just let go. We let go of either thought. That is a way we can put our entire being, both body and mind, five skandhas, on the ground of interconnected or interdependent origination. So that is why Uchiyama Roshi said our Zazen is Honzon, primary Buddha, or true teacher. Then he continues, on this ground of just sitting and letting go of any kind of thoughts, he says, it is Zazen that protects, guides, and gives strength to our daily actions, as well as to our lives as a whole, and in turn to the society in which we live. So we try to live based on this practice, based on this reality of interconnectedness, instead of things happening in our mind. So we venerate this Zazen, or venerate this Zazen means venerate this foundation of network of interdependent origination. And please.
Well, I just have a question,
Mm-hmm.
which is the idea that Zazen is good for nothing seems different from this idea that Zazen protects, guides, and gives strength to our daily life.
Well, so there is two different kind of levels. Instead of always following our thinking, whether right or wrong, we put emphasis on this reality of interdependence. And we are, in this English translation, the subject is Zazen. Zazen, protect or guide. But what Uchiyama Roshi said, we are protected and guided.
Oh,
So, English doesn't like a passive.
right. I
So
understand.
we change it. Anyway, this means we are protected, guided by Zazen. That let go of our ego-centeredness. This means our this is good for nothing for our ego-centered idea or desires, but it makes us more kind of close to the reality. If we think that is a benefit, then Zazen is good for everything. Zazen is a protector. Zazen is a teacher.
But
So
we shouldn't do Zazen to gain.
if we say so at the moment, Zazen comes from this level. So in order to negate or allow us to be free from evaluation within this level, people like Roshi, Zazen is good for nothing. So we should not accept anything from Zazen on this level. But when we sit in Zazen, we are guided by this reality beyond our thinking. And it might be different from what we want. So if we practice Zazen in order to get some kind of benefits, such as make me more healthy or important or wise person, then that is my personal desire. And we use Zazen as a means or method to get that something we want. But in Zazen, we have to let go of all such desires and just sit. When we let go or give up all that desires without any expectation from Zazen, then we are, what is the word in English? Something like we are animated by this interconnectedness. So we don't follow or chase after what we desire, but we sit down and not we chase after, but we are, what is the word?
There is the word infused.
Infused?
Infused by.
Anyway, something larger than us allow us to live as a part of this interconnectedness. So if we think this is a true benefit from this, then that is good. That is fine. When I talk about this expression, Zazen is good for nothing, I always say Zazen is good for nothing.
So nothingness is an active state of being.
I think so.
That enables us to act from our higher selves.
That is my understanding. Zazen is good, but not for something else. But Zazen is good, period. And for nothing means, this is nothing. Mu. Mu means emptiness. So Zazen is good for emptiness. But when we use some positive word, next moment we have some attachment to that positive thing, then it becomes part of this level. To avoid, that kind of, grasping and attachment. Many Buddhist masters or Zen masters use a negative language, such as emptiness. If that is emptiness, we can grasp or attach ourselves. But some people don't like this negative language. They want to do the same thing as Buddha nature. Then we have Buddha nature is something we want or desirable, and it's kind of then there is a danger. I kind of a desire to get Buddha nature, but emptiness, we cannot grasp and attach ourselves to emptiness or nothingness. So,
But there's so much potential there.
of course, nothing includes everything. This entirety of network is nothing. And this practice of letting go of our personal views, that is very limited. Then we can be part of this interconnectedness, because we are from the beginning. We are there. So by letting go of this thinking, we just return to the original reality. That is what Uchiyama Roshi is saying. We are protected, guided. So Zazen is our teacher. And we are strengthened within our daily activities. That means when our actions is based on my personal desire. This is my personal experience. When I try to do something to fulfill my desire, I always have fear and uncertainty whether I can be successful or not, or whether people like me, my action or not. But when I do things for the Dharma, not for me, then I don't have fear. Even if I fail, that is not my fail, my personal failure, but it's Buddha's failure. So I don't care. That means I can do, things without fear. When I really feel this is not my personal activity. So, when I moved to Bloomington, this is the first Soto Zen practice center in the entire state of Indiana. And Bloomington is a tiny, small town. So if I try to, establish my temple as my benefit, personal benefit or ambition to establish a successful large temple, then probably I didn't choose Bloomington. Actually, one of the reasons I decided to move to Bloomington is, in Indiana, there's no Soto Zen center. And, Uchiyama Roshi always asked us to be pioneer, the frontier. So it seems Indiana was a frontier in terms of Dharma. So, I don't care about whether I didn't care whether my plan is successful or not. Anyway, I do, because it is what Dharma. I mean, I was led by Dharma, not my personal desire for success. So and we didn't have much money. So to me, it's more natural not to be successful. So I don't need to worry about whether this can be successful or failure. Anyway, I do what I need to do. That's all. What my mission is transmit what I was taught from my teacher, and even one person practice with me. That's enough. Well, what I'm talking, or protected and guided, and we are given strength from this reality of interdependent origination. I mean, when I do something for the sake of Dharma, in my experience, always someone help me. And Uchiyama Roshi said, if we are working for the sake of Dharma, always some people help us. Some people who, not because of me, but because of Dharma. So there's no, he said, we don't need to, how can I say, face that dead end. There's always a path to walk. That is, most powerful teaching to me. So as far as I'm working for Dharma, there's no failure. Of course, there's no success. Even it becomes successful, it's not my success, it's Buddha's success. And in turn to the society in which we live. So we are living within the society. We can't live alone. And this society is a part of this interconnectedness. And when we live based on that interconnectedness, that can allow us or help us to make the society into more peaceful and free of competitive way of life. So that is how he said he's talking our religious life based on this Zazen practice, means based on the true reality of interconnectedness or non-duality. And not only Uchiyama Roshi, but Sawaki Roshi is almost exactly the same thing in part of the teaching of Homeless God. But his expression is interesting. Uchiyama Roshi said, we are protected, guided, and given strength. But Sawaki Roshi's expression is more kind of interesting. It appeared on section 43 of this book, Zazen Teaching of Homeless God. First Dharma word by which Sawaki Roshi is, we don't practice to attain enlightenment. We practice dragged around.
What?
By dragged,
Dragged around.
D-R-A-G-G, dragged around by enlightenment. That means enlightenment is not the object we want to gain, or we can gain, but we are practiced by dragging around. That means we don't want. In this level, we don't want such a thing, but somehow we are pulled and dragged around by the Dharma or by enlightenment. So enlightenment cannot be this person's possession or something this person can gain, but we are, dragged around by enlightenment. enlightenment means this Dharma of interconnectedness. So this is something we don't want, according to Sawakiros, but we have to do. And the second saying by Sawakiros in this section is, we are watched by Zazen, scolded by Zazen, obstructed by Zazen, dragged around by Zazen, and spend our lives in tears. This is the happiest life, isn't it? That means this Zazen is almost always against my personal selfish desire. So from this point, Sawakiros is talking from this level always. That's why he said Zazen is good for nothing for this ego-centered person. But that is our religious life. We cry because we cannot satisfy our desire. So we are, instead of guided, Sawakiros said we are watched. So what Zazen is like a strict teacher, which always watch us and make sure we don't go astray. So we have a kind of fear against this person or this teacher called Zazen. And scolded by Zazen, when we make some mistakes or some actions, try to fulfill my personal desire, we are scolded by Zazen. Why do such a thing? Do you do such a thing? So Zazen is a really tough teacher. Never say you are good. And obstructed by Zazen. Obstructed means because of Zazen, we cannot do what we want to do to pursue personal benefit. So this is also Dogen's expression. We are obstructed by Zazen. He used in Fukanda Zengi. That means being obstructed by Zazen, we cannot make mistake that I want to do. But that is a mistake based according to Dharma. Means for example, if I give a talk or even write about Buddhism, if I want to do this to make me this famous person, then that is a mistake. And so if I do even something looks like for Dharma, but in Zazen, I cannot hide anything. Zazen knows everything because Zazen is me. So if I have such a motivation, then my Zazen is called or obstruct me. So Zazen is really a tough teacher because Zazen knows everything about me, no matter how subtle small things and how hard I try to hide. Zazen can see it. So there's nothing hidden in Zazen. That is what Sawakiros means, obstructed by Zazen and dragged around by Zazen. I didn't want to come to the United States. When I was 26, I had no desire to live in America. Or before that, I had no desire to study English. But somehow I couldn't say no, even though I didn't want to. And now I think if I didn't study English and I didn't come to America, I think my life can be much easier to live in in Buddhist temple in Japan and practice Zazen and study Dogen and talk about Dogen in Japanese, I think it must be much easier. But somehow I couldn't say no. When my teacher asked me to study English and to go to America. This is really, doesn't obstructed my desire. And I was dragged around by Zazen, or by my teacher. Or Zazen and my teacher means Dharma. And spend our lives in tears. Our life might be much easier if I don't practice Zazen and if I don't have such a tough teacher. I can be satisfied when my desires are satisfied in certain degree. I can be satisfied. I could be happy. But in the case of activity for Dharma, there's no perfection. We are always in the process. That is fact, beings are numberless, we have to save them. And because there's no completion, we have to always say not enough. That is really difficult life. So sometimes we have to cry, I can't do more than this. And yet, Dharma or Buddha or our Zazen ask me to continue and take even one step further. So from ego-centered shohaku, Zazen is really terribly tough teacher. And because of this life, my life became much difficult than I could hope. But Sakyo said, this is the happiest life, isn't it? I'm not sure yet. But I really think so. I not think, but I believe so. When I was a teenager, all of us had different desires or hope about life and want to become businessman or politician or something successful and valued within the society. And to become a Buddhist monk is not something not many people want. But the other part of the society is a kind of a world of success and failure. But the world of Zazen always failure. So we don't need to worry about whether success or failure. I think that might be most easiest life. I don't need to evaluate my activity, whether successful or failure. This is about Buddha or Dharma. If not so many American people are not interested in what I'm practicing, that's fine. But not my responsibility. That only means time is not come yet. Sooner or later it happened, but it's not in my lifetime. That's all. So there's no failure, and also there's no success. So we are free from such a evaluation. I think this is happiest life. And this happiness has no opposition, like unhappiness or success and failure. This is way of life before any such evaluation from human, what's it called, measurement. Well, that is what I have to say this morning. From next weekend, we'll have session 9, right? So we'll have a Sunday activity 2 weeks later, second Sunday of March. I continue. Rest of this paragraph, he says, teaching in Bible essentially is the same from Uchiyama Roshi point of view. Any question or comments? Please.
2 questions. One is, we were talking about how the 5 skandhas somehow create this I, and that part of the realization is, hey, there is no I. So, is it fair to say then, in that subject-object relationship, that is there a subject-object relationship anymore, if there is no I?
On that foundation of interconnectedness, there are no such independent individual I.
Okay, what about that subject-object relationship?
On that level, there's no.
Then
but there's no such for human life. This such a level cannot exist within relation with this, right?
Okay.
That means we cannot live without delusion or fantasy of I. That's why we need to take refuge to this foundation. So we put more emphasis on this foundation than what I think.
Yeah.
So on this, if we separate these 2 levels, on this level there's no I. But this level cannot exist without, this human thinking.
Okay.
That is a problem.
But so the question that comes to me is, at the foundational level, and a word that might be interesting to use in this area is ontological. Ontological. Ontology refers to being.
Ontological.
Ontological, yeah. So at that level, are there objects? We just clarified that there is no I. But my question is, are there objects? Distinct and separate objects?
Object cannot be there without subject.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Well, this is fascinating. Okay.
It's like a discussion about the sound of windmill. With, the famous koan, where the sound is made by the wind or the bell, and the teacher asks the question to his student, it's not the wind, it's not the bell, it's my mind is ringing. But Dogen said, not man, not wind, not bell, not the mind. So he said, this entire being is ringing. So there's no subject-object relation.
Okay. So then, and that, by the way, is just like opening up reality in a huge way.
Yeah.
I'll continue exploring that later. But I want to talk about this other question that a couple of weeks ago we were talking about how the motivation for practice, if the motivation for practice is dissatisfaction, so that we're grabbing after something we want or we're avoiding something that we don't want, either way, we don't actually get to where we want to be because we're starting from dissatisfaction, which indicates to me we're starting up at that upper level. And we're not basing our practice and experience from this lower level. Which, if we started there, we wouldn't be practicing out of dissatisfaction.
Right.
Okay.
That is what Uchiyama Roshi is saying. Instead of our desire or dissatisfaction,
Yeah.
The life force
Mm-hmm.
gave us energy. That is what, when he says, what he said. We are given strength. Strength is like an energy.
Right.
So our energy for work or for practice is not my dissatisfaction, but this life force of this interconnectedness.
When I hear you saying that, it feels like the goodness that you were referring to earlier that doesn't have an opposite. That goodness is what's present and filling us or driving us. I don't know if drive is the right word there, but that's creating the motivation.
So we do things not being moved by our idea or desire or dissatisfaction, but we work diligently to manifest this life force because of awakening to this interconnectedness. That is what I think Mahayana Buddhism teaches.
And in a way, that is already there. That energy to manifest. It's
Even
not anything new.
even our ego-centered activity is part of it.
Oh, yeah.
That's a problem. That is a problem.
I think that's the joke part.
Yes. That's why we have to live with tears, crying. Okay, please.
So, I'm sorry, one of my friends passed away, so I have to go now, so I apologize.
Okay,
But I
no
was
problem.
also going to say, is it okay to be like a tree and a forest before we achieve nirvana?
Tree and
Single?
forest.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are tree in the forest. Yes.
I'm gonna leave there.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much.